President Trump detailed the latest chapter of his trade war with China in a series of tweets Thursday. The president announced beginning September 1st, the U.S. will start putting, quote, a small additional tariff of 10% on the remaining $300 billion of goods and products coming from China into our country, adding this does not include the $250 billion already tariffed at 25%. Stocks fell following the announcement, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping about 300 points and reversing early morning gains in the wake of the Federal Reserve's cut to interest rates on Wednesday. The 10% tariff will go into effect during scheduled negotiations between the two countries. Mr. Trump accused China's President Xi Jinping of not following through on past promises, but described the current dialogue between the world's two largest economies as positive. But President Trump struck a different tone when he addressed reporters from the South Lawn.
For many years, China has been taking money out by the hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We have rebuilt China. So now it's time that we change things around. If they don't want to trade with us anymore, that would be fine with me. Would save a lot of money.
Alex Lawson is a senior reporter on international trade for Law360, and he joins me now. Alex, we really appreciate you being with us. Thanks for coming. So for the past couple of months, we've had a little bit of a détente in this trade war with China. Why the ramping up now?
Well, this stuff has tended to go in a bit of cycles, right? So they spent all of last year imposing tariffs. The U.S. and China did sort of back and forth. At the end of the year, they agreed, we're going to hold off on new tariffs. We're going to go to the negotiating table. That held for a few months until about May, when, as we hinted at already, the president said that China had been retreating from promises it made. He starts to ramp up again. They make peace again. And now we are at this point where, okay, we are diverting from the plan where the general rule has been we're not doing tariffs while we negotiate. We're going to hold off sort of in good faith. Now there has been a change where it's like we are going to impose these tariffs while we negotiate to sort of impose maximum pressure.
Does that signal that the negotiations have fallen apart?
The U.S. is clearly dissatisfied with the way it's gone. Around about February and March, they were saying they were pretty close. I think Trump said at one point we could strike it within about a month. We're now in July. We're now in August, excuse me. And there's still nothing. So I think that they are trying to sort of put the foot on the gas a little bit. They want to sort of hold China's feet to the fire in that regard.
China's stalling a little bit here, it would appear. So let's dig into the sort of the details here. Which are the products that stand to be affected by this new tariff?
Well, you've seen them described as the back-to-school tariffs. There's lots of clothes, lots of shoes, electronics like phones and laptops, things like that. The thing to really know is that in the early stages of this tariff escalation between the two countries, the United States was very careful to place tariffs on like industrial goods. Things are used in like machinery and to make other things. Now, as it's gone on and no one has backed down, we're getting into the consumer goods, things that you and I and our families buy at the store.
So are these the types of things where the consumer will see the immediate hardship of the tariffs, or does it take a while for the manufacturers to absorb the hardship from the tariff before passing it on to the consumer?
They are trying to do it in a way that will minimize damage to the end consumers. I mean, some would say that by doing it at all, they're not trying to do that, but they are starting it at only 10%, which is a modest level. The other tariffs are set at 25%, so they're clearly trying to take the sting out for as long as possible by starting at this low level and reserving their right to move it up at a later time.
I read that the iPhone is one of the products that may be impacted. Yes. Has Apple released any sort of statement into whether they're going to pass this on to the consumer?
I've not seen anything from Apple specifically, though it is worth knowing that there is a program in place for importers to avoid these tariffs. However, Trump has specifically singled out Apple as saying that is not that they will not be eligible for that program. So I can't imagine they're too pleased with that kind of tariff escalation.
So it's been an interesting ride with the stock market this week. On Wednesday, stocks went up after the Fed made its announcement. Now the stocks went down after the president made his tariff announcement. Where do you see this all shaking out?
Very difficult to say at this point. I mean, Trump is clearly trying to strike something resembling a deal with China, or it's possible he wants to just sort of ride out his sort of tough line through the election cycle. They think they can wait China out. So you can read it as saying, like, we're trying to get a deal immediately, or digging in for the long haul to say, our economy is good, our economy is strong, we just cut the Fed rates, I can afford to play this game with you, and maybe we'll play it out for the long haul.
So even though tariffs are not popular with voters, according to polls, does the president believe that he's playing a long game that will eventually be popular with voters?
I can only speculate as to what is actually going on in terms of strategy over there, but I think that, you know, by their political calculus, I think that they can sort of truthfully say, we're getting tough on China, who's been ripping us off for years. And there are serious sort of economic issues going on between the U.S. and China with the theft of intellectual property, human rights violations, things like that. I think that he is sort of counting on being able to say that and kind of hope that the sting of the tariffs can hold off long enough until something can materialize.
And so what kind of response has there been from China so far? Are we likely to see any kind of comprehensive trade deal come out of this?
The response from China has always been, if history holds here, is to impose tariffs back upon us. And this is something that's happened, or that's sort of affected farmers sort of more outsized than any other sector. They're likely to do that again. If anything, I will be interested to see, and what we should look out for is to see if they are even willing to come to the negotiating table with this over their head. As I said already, there has been the understanding of a ceasefire while we talk. It's very possible that they might decide not to sort of engage on this issue at all.
All right. Alex Lawson, thank you for sharing your insight with us.
Thanks
we
so
really
much.
appreciate it.